and to create a place for women journeying with cancer to be inspired and to shake up the way we look at cancer so we can activate the power of our minds to heal us from the inside. Welcome to this series, Rethinking Cancer. I'm Cindy Scott, two-time cancer thriver and author of The Healing Journal. This series is sponsored by Evolving Women, an online healing sanctuary for women journeying with cancer. You can find them at evolvingwomen.co. Hello, lovelies. I'm Cindy Scott, author of The Healing Journal, and your host today for this episode on Rethinking Cancer. Today, I have a special lady, Angela Locashio. She's also known as Mama Pistachio, and I love that. She is a self-proclaimed nerd, which I actually have tingles go through me when I say that, but she's actually owning that and wants to be seen as a nerd. She is an advocate for nerdy, neurodivergent, and queer folks. She's also a Marine wife and a mum. She is a diversity advocate, educator, trainer, and coach. She's like a superwoman. So welcome, Angela. I'm so delighted to have you here with us today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm so super excited. I'm pumped.
Great. Well, I think we both established we love having these kind of conversations. For me, having real and raw conversations are the only way to go. So let's have one of those today. And so I know you are a cancer thriver, which is one of the real reasons I wanted to have you on the show today. So tell us a little bit about your cancer journey. What was going on for you in your life at that time?
Sure. This is actually such perfect timing. Just yesterday, I got the results back of my 10-year. It'll be 11 years this year. So my 10th year pap smear.
Yes.
Everything was great with it. And I do not have to have another one for 5 years.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah.
So, perfect timing then that we're celebrating you today.
Yes. Thank you so much. Okay. So you asked about my journey. Oh my gosh.
So must be like a lifetime ago now. Hey,
it's funny. I can remember it like yesterday, but I also know that it was a long time ago. 2011, I was diagnosed with cervical cancer. That it was really like quick moving. Apparently, I had two different kinds. So I had a slow moving and then a fast moving. And I had actually been fighting for a year with my medical team and had to go to 3 different doctors before I got the diagnosis. In that year, we were talking about stress a lot. They're like, you're stressed out, you're stressed out, you're stressed out. And I'm like, there's something else going on. And yes, I was stressed out. There was absolutely no doubt about that. I was stressed out.
Yep.
But it was not the stress that was making me have pain, that was making me anemic to the point I was taking 4 iron pills a day. Wow. And continued to have low iron. My ferritin levels were bottomed completely out. So there was obviously a little bit more going on, and I really had to self-advocate. Which I think is so important. If you know deep in your soul that there's something going on, don't let anybody tell you otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you knew intuitively. So the doctors were saying, hey, look, your stress levels are high, but you knew there was something more going on.
There was absolutely no doubt in my mind. I was a teacher. I was a mom. I was also in the midst of getting my master's degree.
Yes, busy,
and a wife, right? And I was not my authentic self.
Yes. So you know that now looking back.
Oh yeah, and that 100% played into me getting cancer. I fully believe that had I advocated for myself and maintained my authenticity throughout my life, instead of squashing that down, especially squashing down my sexuality, I do not think that I would have gotten it. I don't think I would have gotten the kind of cancer that I had.
Yeah.
I think it was very pointed. The energy was very much there in that area of my body because it had nowhere else to go.
So at that time, did you know that you were actively repressing who you were, that you were trying to, I guess, dilute or, be less of who you are?
I did and I didn't.
Okay.
So I knew that I was not the person. So when I originally got married, I was a gothy. When I met this guy, I was gothy with different colored hair, piercings, tattoos, just this really funky, quirky, sexual, expressive human being.
Mm-hmm.
And within 6 months of meeting him, this was not his fault. He did not ask me to do this. Within 6 months of meeting him, I became a soccer mom. He was an engineer and he very much fit kind of the stereotypical engineer.
Yeah.
But without the like the gamer, fun, nerdy, geeky, playful type, like none of that was there, which is what attracted me at first. I like nerdy guys. I can't help it.
Right.
And that was there, but there was that whole playful piece that was missing. And I just set it off to the side. He made a comment to me one day and okay, let me just say I'm autistic. So sometimes something sticks in my head and I hold on to that. I really hold on to it. Sometimes it works well for me. Sometimes it does not. He said to me one day, that's for young people. By the way, we were like 25, right? That's for young people. That's not for married people. Once you get to this state where we are, we grow up and we stop doing those things.
We should be behaving differently.
Yes, let's listen to the societal script and let's become worker bees and go in a straight line and be very linear thinkers. And I just really held on to that as this is what I'm supposed to do.
Mm.
And if I don't, then I'm not a good woman.
Mm-hmm. A good wife, a good person, good mom. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And I was a single mom actually when I met him and he adopted my son. I just really held on to that. Like I did things wrong like I've seen my parents do. I'm not going to make these mistakes. In order to do them right, I have to do this.
Mm.
And I started wearing khaki pants and Keds and little polo shirts and I dyed my hair blonde, and not like a cool funky blonde, but just just a regular blonde. And that is not me. I stopped playing games. No more D&D, no more video games. None of it. I worked.
You lost yourself, basically.
Absolutely. And again, I want to say it was not his fault. He did not ask me to do that.
It was really probably society's conditioning, right? So the expectations you placed on yourself based on the external sort of influence.
Yep, 100%. And that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to grow up, and that's what grown-ups look like. Yeah.
All right.
You should. I hate that word should. It just I was shoulding all over myself, and I didn't like the smell of it, but I dealt with it anyway. Yeah, I really believe that contributed to my diagnosis.
Yeah. Okay, so tell us about that. So at that point when you started to have awareness of things weren't right in your body and you actually went and found out and had the diagnosis, what was going on within you around that time?
Gosh, you know what? At one point in time, the people who I worked with, they told me they didn't even know that I was married or had a child.
Oh, okay.
I was at work all the time, hiding from. Let me tell you, my classroom was bright and colorful, and I had Jack Skellington, and actually I have right here, I had these guys like in my classroom, and I had it was me. My classroom was very much me. And I had that gothy feel in there with the rainbow colors, and I loved it. And it was
So
safe.
that was the real full expression of you was playing out at school in your classroom. And that was probably permissible, right? Like it was playful, it was childlike, it was, you know, that safe place for you to be fully expressing yourself.
Yeah, I mean, working with middle school kids, people tease me a lot. They're like, "Oh, you're such a 12-year-old boy," and I'm like, "Thank you."
A compliment.
Yeah, I mean, I was able to just be really safe and really be myself there. The kids don't judge you. They don't have expectations of you except to love them, right?
Yeah.
And one day my son said to me, "It's okay, Mom. They need you more than I do."
Oh.
Stab me in the heart. Stab me in the heart. And he was about 10 or 11. He was 12 when I was diagnosed.
Yes.
So it was all about the same time that I'm realizing there's something wrong. What am I running away from? My nervous system is in fight, flight, fawn, freeze,
Yes.
24/7. It never relaxes.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a moment. So it was that based on, you know, you were a school teacher, you were a mom, you were a wife, and you were probably moving around being a military wife as well. So was it just those stresses, or was it perhaps more invisible load of things perhaps that you're putting on yourself, like, you know, that you were not living in alignment with your truth?
I was not a military wife at the time.
Oh,
That's
okay.
a whole other story. I'm no longer married to that person. Um, for obvious reasons, we're just very different.
Yeah.
It was me. It was expectations that I was putting on myself. I can look back at it now, being a late diagnosed autistic person. I can look back and say, I was doing these things. I love to work. I immerse myself in my work and I get so happy and excited about it. And I want to be in it. That's my happy place. And so I did. But I did it. If I would have been happy in other areas as well, I wouldn't have needed to use that to regulate my nervous system. But I did. I used work to regulate my nervous system.
So how did you know? I mean, obviously this has become a real passion area for you around understanding our nervous system and the, you know, sympathetic and parasympathetic response. So tell us a little bit about what was showing up for you in your body that you knew that you were stressed. How did you know you were in a stress response?
Pain, constant pain all day, every day.
Right.
And we can come back to this, but actually after I had surgery and got the all clear and everything for my cancer, that pain persisted.
Right.
Up until last year, actually. That pain persisted. So physical pain is something that really tells me I'm not releasing energy. Also, I became very standoffish with people. My husband at the time actually said he called me cold, which can be part of my personality. I like to have a certain amount of quiet and a certain amount of space between me and somebody else. But I also like to have connection, and I need touch. I need touch. And that, you know, that was one of the big things. We were not compatible as sexual partners. And he actually told me that I was very intimidating because of my sexual experiences with a wide variety of genders, my like for a wide variety of genders, and the desires that I have, the way my body needs to be touched in order to be able to relax, to be able to enjoy having sex. not compatible with him.
Mm-hmm.
It was difficult for me to explain to him why, which of course is what led me eventually down the road to going back to school and becoming a certified sexologist.
Yeah, awesome.
I wanted to understand that, right? And I wanted to help other people understand that. If I would not have been suppressing my sexuality as much as I did, I do not believe that I would have gotten a gynecological cancer.
Right.
Gynecological cancer. I am not saying that that's everybody's experience, but that's my experience. I had a lot of anger, resentment, bitterness, and negative energy, and it had to go somewhere.
Yeah.
And it could either go out at the people, and I do not like being angry and hostile with people, or it can go in. And it did.
And it did.
In fact, it went both ways eventually.
Right. Okay, so was it the diagnosis that actually finally was that tipping point for you, or was it before that?
That moment when my son said that to me, that was a brick upside the head. But I continued on that road for quite some time. So first there was that, and then there was, okay, cancer diagnosis. You could have all of these things. And I was exceptionally lucky in the treatment that I had to have. I had a radical hysterectomy, which took out lymph nodes, all of the stuff, the ligaments and tendons that hold up like the ureters and the kidneys. And I had all of that removed, along with part of the top part of the vagina, and of course the uterus and the cervix and all of that. And some lymph nodes. And I did not have to have radiation or chemotherapy. I know that I am exceptionally lucky that I did not have to go through that.
Yes.
And there's a somewhat of a survivor's guilt that you get with that. And I started thinking, like, let's have some gratitude. What can you do? You are here for a reason on this planet. What are you going to do with that? And so I started thinking, I started changing. I started, I went to therapy and started learning how to have better relationships with people, because I could have great relationships and communication with some people, but give me an adult who I disagree with and they can't prove to me with facts that what they're saying is correct, then I can get belligerent and really break a really good relationship. So I went to therapy to learn how to deal with that. I started then looking at coaching, and coaching for myself. How can I learn how to do that? And then now, how can I take this and give back to the community with it? So it was the start, but there were a lot of other obstacles that helped get me where I am today. Yeah.
So here you are, over 10 years later, and you've had the diagnosis, you've had your hysterectomy. When did you start to actually honor your truth and express the truth of who you are? When do you think that moment happened for you?
Immediately. I had lost a lot of weight. Right before my cancer diagnosis, actually, I lost like 50 pounds within like a 2-month period.
Wow.
I mean, I was eating like pounds of cinnamon gummy bears and ice cream and pizza and
all the healthy stuff.
Losing weight, right? Like I was craving this stuff, cinnamon gummy bears. I had to have them every single day or I was angry. And so that tells me something, because I'm not a big sweets person. So my body was craving the sweets so that it could build the tumor, right? And my dad, during that time, he was so proud of me because I had lost weight. And on the day, I didn't mean to lose weight, but everybody around me was telling me how great I looked. It's
you looked awesome. Yeah.
I'm freaking dying. No wonder I look great. But my dad, on the day of my graduation with my master's degree, first one in my family, by the way, on the day that I graduate, he complimented me on my weight and told me how proud of me he was for losing weight. And at that moment, I knew everything was going to change.
Right.
Everything.
So tell us what happened.
I went off. I spun around and I just went off. And it was years of suppressed anger and frustration for not being accepted as my authentic self. And he had his own trauma that created that. Like, that didn't just come out of the blue for him. And I understand that. But my family, my brothers, they call me the little dark ugly one, because they're all like light colored hair, blue eyes, you know, and here I am, dark hair, dark eyes, and I'm 4'8". And so they would tease me, oh, she's the little dark ugly one, and oh, you know, dad's not your real dad, and all these little things like that. And, you know, oh, you're a tree hugging hippie, and what are you, a lesbo, and just all these things all my life. And at that moment, I was done. No more. F off. No more. We're done. And that kind of started the spin. I started playing more. And I started being like, you don't want me to play? Tough shit. I'm going to play. If you don't like it, you can go somewhere else, because I'm not hurting you. I'm going to play with my kid.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm fat. So what? Yes,
so there was
I like women. So what? Like,
there was an acceptance around, this is who I truly am, and I'm not going to put on a show for everyone anymore.
I am not going to die so that you can have me be who you want me to be.
I love that.
I'm going to live in my authenticity. And if you don't like it, there's the door.
Exactly. You're not a real friend anyway.
Yeah.
Wow. So I've just got goosebumps hearing that. I mean, it feels like so liberating that you're like pulling off the shackles, really, and just saying, hey, this is who I am, world, like it or lump it.
It is liberating most of the time. I'm not going to lie. I had a big cry earlier today. I had a full-on meltdown that's been building up for probably the last 5 or 6 days, because when you're on like LinkedIn and you are sharing your services with the world, and you look like me, and you refuse to fit into the box, you refuse to put on a suit, you refuse to do things the way that they are normally done, and you are encouraging people to step outside of the box, you do get passed up, and you do have to work harder. And sometimes that is exhausting.
I think you would not be for everyone, as none of us are, but like, you will attract your people because of who you are. And there'll be other people that'll be like, oh, that's just way too much. Like, I couldn't ever be fully who I am, truly. And there's a lot of those people walking the planet, but you would be liberating quite a lot of people, I think, to live their truth, because you are liberated.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. Unfortunately, when you are a little bit outside of the societal norm, every once in a while you get reminded. Every once in a while you get reminded. And sometimes those reminders, you know, imagine holding out your hand and you put a penny in your hand, and then you put another penny in your hand. It's not heavy. Cool. The longer I hold that there with 2 pennies in my hand, the heavier those 2 pennies get. Then I put a third and a fourth and a fifth. Now my nervous system is going, I'm not sure I can do this. And on top of it, my muscles are starting to act, and everything just goes. It just goes. And if you don't deal with it, it piles up. And I had not dealt with it. I had not dealt with it. And so today, it was like, you're going to deal with this. You're going to go through this. You're going to deal with the emotion and the hurt that you experienced, and move through. Let your nervous system come back, relax, and be able to breathe again.
That sounds amazing, and great that you have such awareness of it, because that's one of the things that I'm on about, is really tuning into your body's wisdom and listening to what is being stirred up. So whether it's pain, whether it's headaches, whether it's insomnia, sore throat, whatever is manifesting in your body, it's your body's way of communicating that things aren't in flow, they're not in alignment. So tell me a bit about how you've discovered within yourself how to manage stress and how to alleviate stress, because what we know now is happening in our society is that we've got layer upon layer of stress. So we're accumulating what I call mini traumas. Yeah. And we're not learning how to release them. We're not learning how to bring our body back into balance. So tell us a bit about that for you.
Okay, I'm gonna jump on that word balance.
Okay. Doesn't exist.
So, am I allowed to say a bad word?
You can swear all you like.
Okay.
Be yourself.
I don't think they're bad words. Anybody who goes to my webpage, the very first thing that they see is balance is bullshit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think I had to understand that I was striving to find balance. So much so that I became a certified meditation instructor. Yes. And I actually started doing trauma-informed education to meditation instructors because I could see something happening there. Mm-hmm. What I saw was people saying, breathe, breathe, breathe. And I'm like, what if you can't breathe? What if your nervous system is so dysregulated that you can't breathe? You must do something first to come back into a state of harmony and actually look at it as harmony rather than balance. I'll explain that here in just a second.
I like that word, harmony. It's good.
Isn't that beautiful? So that you can then be able to breathe and get that extra deep layer, because we know physical activity and nice, deep, big breaths are the way to regulate the nervous system. Scientifically proven. Y'all can argue with me if you want to, but it's not going to work.
I'm not arguing with you.
I get a lot of people who are like, but I can't. And I'm like, fair. Let's figure out how you can. What things can we do within your authentic self to help you be able to find that harmony? And the first thing we have to do is look at the linguistic effect of the word balance. When I think balance, immediately I think of like standing on one foot or riding a bike or doing a plank. It's something that requires energy and it cannot be maintained. You cannot maintain balance for an extended period of time. It's impossible. So let's get rid of the linguistic effect that happens. And let's change the word to harmony. Well, what does harmony mean for you? And fine, if we need to change it, I'll change it to whatever the client needs and help them find a word. So if harmony is not working for you, cool. When I think harmony, I think about a river and how the river is running and there are rocks and it's smooth and it's lovely, and a storm comes. And here's this river and the silt is up like this and it's muddy and it's splashing out of its banks and it's going over the rocks and there's the white caps and all of that. The river is still flowing. It never stops. That's harmony.
Yeah.
It's responding to the environment around it.
And it meanders, it moves around, it ebbs and it flows. Yeah, absolutely.
And it gets to its end destination.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. Some things have to be let go. Some things spill over the side. New things are absorbed. But ultimately, that river gets to its end destination. Yeah. That's what we need as human beings.
I love that word, harmony. I'm going to change it from balance to harmony from here forward.
Yay!
Flow like the river.
Flow like the river. And get angry like the river.
Yeah, splash
You know?
about and actually have that expression for sure.
Yeah, mirror the sky. So today you're blue because the sky is shining down blue. Tomorrow you're going to be brown because you're all mixed up and muddy. And then the next day you're going to be gray because the sky is overcast, and that is okay. We respond to our
Beautiful.
environment.
And I think there's something about just accepting wherever you're at in that river. Like one day it might be that you feel really joyful and happy. And then the next minute you might feel emotion arising, and that might not feel comfortable, but allowing and being okay to sit in the uncomfortable is so key.
It is. And understanding that we can feel happiness and joy and wonder at exactly the same time as we feel grief and sadness and frustration. They happen together. You don't have to get rid of one to have the other. We're fighting ourselves constantly to have this balance. You don't have
Yeah.
to.
Complex beings, man, how can we do that at the same time?
It's amazing.
It is
Human
amazing.
beings are amazing.
So let's go back to you. You've had your hysterectomy and you've had this light bulb moment or this awakening where you've gone, life's too short, stuff it. I just want to be myself. So take us back to that time and how that was for you.
It was a lot of changing relationships. It was a lot of setting boundaries. It was a lot of asking myself, what are my values? And how do I live my life true to my values? And again, I'm going to go to that sex thing. Consent. Consent. We think that that's just about sex. And it's not. It's about every single thing that we do. And it's about asking ourselves, how do I feel about this? What is my body doing? When I say, I had a sexuality professional the other day, we're talking about her naming her business. And she's like, well, I'm thinking about this. I said, go look in the mirror and say, hi, I'm name. I am the founder of name of business. Come back and let me know what happens to your body when you say that. Right? Like understanding our bodily reactions. We're so far away from that. Our body tells us whether we're consenting or not. It 100% does. So I started paying attention to that. Like, I'm starting to tense up. I'm feeling this pain right here. There's no good reason for me to have that pain, but every time I get frustrated or angry or upset, I get this pain right here. That's telling me something. My tailbone hurts. I'm clenching my butt. There are things that we do that let us know if we're consenting to whatever's happening. So I started paying attention to that. Eventually, I got divorced, which was good for both of us. And I went back to, I ended up LARPing, and that's how I met my amazing husband, who I'm with now. That's live action role play. So think Dungeons and Dragons, but you're dressed up and you're actually like hitting each other with the play swords and all that. Super, super fun. But I went full on play. I'm going to do this. I don't care what other people think. And I was doing it with my son.
Good on you.
Right. So that's really, I think, what changed the most. He's 22 years old and he's a Marine, and he plays with me every Sunday. He plays D&D with us online. And
so that's a nice way that you connect with him. You've got that bond.
Yep.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yep. It really is.
And I love that you actually went back to and embraced play, because I think as an adult, that's probably something that I haven't allowed a lot of in my life. And only recently I've just taken up painting, like acrylics on canvas. And, over the last 10 years, even I've been amassing paint. So I think, oh yeah, I'll get into painting. And then something happens and I just don't actually allocate time for it. I don't get to it. So I just thought, stuff it. I'm committing to this. I'm going to sign up for a class that I need to go. It's an appointment in the diary, just like everything else. And I love it. And I put all my paints together and I had this massive container of paints. I'm like, I've been amassing paints forever. Like something within me has been saying for a long time, you want to paint. There's an artist budding in you. And who knows what I'm going to end up painting, because it's very abstract. It's not perfect painting. It's not the shading and the perfect lines. It's like abstract, bright colors, spatula painting, like, and there's just this expression. But I think there's something in that play, isn't there? Reconnecting with your creativity, actually having joy and fun. And so you went back to that place of reconnecting, and then you met your man in that environment, which is incredible.
I did. It was so great. And that, established that this is something that we will do in our relationship that's always going to be there, right? Which is wonderful. When he's out in the field, we get to role play on the phone. Right? Like this is how we're connecting. When he was at boot camp, okay, he went through boot camp while we were married because he's a little bit younger than I am. And my son went to boot camp and then he went to boot camp. And I actually wrote some of the letters in character.
Yeah.
Like, so it's infused in our life. It's part of who we are. And just for that little scientific reference, play is one of the core emotions that we have. And in order to stimulate the seeking system in our brain, we can stimulate play. That's one of the ways to help us feel motivated and to go forward and do the things that we want to do.
I agree. I think it brings more joy, but it taps into something within us, that creativeness, that, it's what they call the flow state. So it's doing something that you love and time just sort of evaporates. So I certainly love to be in that zone where I'm doing something that's not about hustling or being productive or achieving. It's not a striving activity. It's actually a stillness activity. And I love that.
It is a great form of meditation.
Yeah.
You do not have to sit and be silent and breathe, because it activates the parasympathetic nervous system. And when the parasympathetic nervous system is activated, you do take those deep breaths naturally.
And for me, there's something about the colors, and putting the colors on the palette and mixing them. That's probably the most fun part of it for me, is actually seeing the colors that I create and the reaction, the response in me with the different colors. Like the painting I just finished, it's all bright colors that I would never choose. Like they're bright pinks and purples and a deep, deep purple, like because the teacher's teaching me about contrast and how a good painting needs to have the dark to have the light, and just phenomenal. Like I get this feeling when I look at the painting and the depths of it and all the colors, and it's just moving. It's beautiful. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's fantastic.
Yeah. I'm so pleased that I've finally come to a place in my life where I'm honoring something that I love, which is great, because it's felt like for me, probably a bit like you, but in a different way. Life has felt a bit like drudgery, like it's felt like hard work and I'm pushing uphill and not actually really being myself. Like for me, I grew up in a very Christian home, going to church every Sunday. And I knew that wasn't my truth, but I had to go. I was forced to go until I turned 18. And then I don't think I've set foot back in church. It wasn't my path. It wasn't for me. I am a spiritual person, but I just didn't feel the need to be going to church every Sunday. That wasn't my path. But I think in going to church, I learned that I needed to behave in a certain way, and good girls do this and good girls dress this way. And so there was an unraveling of that stuff that it wasn't me, and I didn't want to be those things, and I didn't want to behave in those ways. So reconnecting with, well, what sits deeper than that? Because those are just layers that I'd put on, and I needed to pull those away. So like you, it was really an unraveling of who I thought I should be, and really start to connect with, well, who am I truly, and what do I value, and how can I live my life in alignment with those values?
That's everything.
It's everything.
Most people, if you ask them, what are your core values? They'll start listing some superficial stuff, or they'll just be stumped.
Most people don't know. Yeah.
Most people have no idea what deep down inside of them their core values are, the things that really affect the decisions that they make,
Yeah.
and the things that they actually desire.
Yeah. Yeah. Most people are living fairly distinctly different lives. They might say these are things that are important, but
Mm-hmm.
there's actually something quite different.
Yeah.
So it sounds to me, Angela, like cancer has actually been quite a wake-up call, or dare I say, even a gift for you. What would you say is different in your life now? I mean, clearly you've allowed a much more full expression of yourself, but what on a sort of day-to-day basis is different for you now, or how do you feel differently even on the inside in the way that you're showing up?
Um, you know what? Today it's the fact that I can feel my body. I
Mm,
can feel a response to something, and I can take a pause and say, okay, what was happening there? Did that fear response that I just have, was that in reaction to something that's actually going to hurt me?
mm,
Or was that a learned response? And how am I going to, I should say, a learned reaction? And how am I going to then respond to that accordingly? I
mhm.
was never able to do that before. I reacted. Now I respond.
I love that. Yeah. So you take that pause and you really consider what is that external stimuli and how is a healthy way for me to respond to it. Have you
Mhm.
heard the acronym what fear stands for? False evidence appearing real.
That's so good.
It's so true. Like you think you've got a plastic snake sitting on the floor and you would have a visceral response to it. But once you actually click in, no, it's actually a plastic snake and I have nothing to fear here. But our brain doesn't actually differentiate until it
Right.
clicks in. Well, that's only a plastic snake. It's not actually harmful. But life is like that, right? Like we can
Yeah.
take things on and think that they're stressful, but like you say, if we can just take pause and actually go, well, hang on, there's actually not a stressor here. Maybe it's something that's been taught through role modeling or a way that you've learned how to respond or react rather, not respond. Yeah.
Yeah. Our environment is full of stimuli,
Yes.
and our sensory nervous system, it actually has 8 senses, not 5.
Mm.
And I know, right?
I'm curious. What are the eight?
Okay, so you've got your regular 5,
Yeah.
right? But then you have these other 3. So you have the vestibular sense, which is balance. Okay, so that feeling of falling,
Mhm.
um, right, can be really, really scary for somebody, and for another person, it can be invigorating and exciting.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
Roller
and
coasters or not? Hmm.
right, right. And then you have proprioception, which is feeling our body in space.
Yes.
So, like, I take this pen and I'm going to put it there, and I know in my brain where it's going to go, and it makes it to that spot.
Mhm.
I know where my joints are. I know where my foot is, in relation to the rest of my body and the space around it. And then the third one is interoception, which is internal feelings.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Love
that's
that.
our response to, do I know whether it's hot or cold? Do I know whether I have to go to the bathroom? Do
Or
I
if
know
that meal
whether,
is sitting well with me.
yeah, absolutely. Am I actually feeling sick, or is there something else going on?
Yeah.
It's all of those internal feelings and our emotions.
Yes.
So we've got those. So imagine our body, anytime we have that fear response, like you were just saying, that fear, that just initial reaction, it's our body acting toward one of those stimuli.
Mhm.
So it's different senses that get stimulated, and then we react. So when we can then go, okay, this is what just happened, right? It's like when you're riding a bike, at first you have to think about it. Or
Yeah.
actually, I should even just say, driving a car, you have to think about, I'm gonna put my foot on the pedal, I'm gonna turn the key and put my seatbelt on, and you have to think about that and spend energy on all of that when you're first learning how to drive. And then you are doing it for a while and you're doing well and you're safe and cool, your body's relaxed. And yeah, bam, you have an accident. Next time you get into the car, you have to reacquaint. You have to think about those steps and spend energy. And we have to do that sometimes when our body, when those senses are going fear, 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 we have to go, okay, what is that in response to?
Yes. I've got a crazy one, and I'm trying to unpack this in myself at the moment. But just last weekend we went down, so we flew down to Melbourne, which is about a 2.5 hour flight from where we live, to see my son. So it's his birthday, and I hadn't seen him for a year, so I was really keen to go down and see him. So there was a lot of like, I'm excited, I can't wait to get down there and catch up with some other friends and just generally see a city that I love. But something happens every time I go on a trip, even if it's a trip that I really want to go on. So it's like there's this stress about, oh, I've got so much to do, to pack up and to close out things, that I'm working on in my business. And I end up in this full on, like I came down with a cold on the first day. I felt, nasally. I felt exhausted. And I'm like, why do I do this every single time I travel? And even though it's a trip that I wanted to do. So I was sitting with that over the whole weekend going, now just calm the farm. Like, what is going on here? Why do I feel I need to have a stress response when it's actually something pleasurable? So yeah, it's something that I'm still working through.
Thank you, society. It's that societal script of you don't get to have a break. How dare you take a break and do something that brings you pleasure?
Guilt. Yeah, I have so much. I'm still working through that. And that was a massive learning for me, even with my cancer journey, was I was always striving, always moving towards something, being productive, being, highly achieving all the time because somehow I'd be rewarded for that. But yeah, stillness, joy, pleasure, those weren't things that were on the radar for me. Fun? No way. Like someone asked me recently, what's your recipe for fun? And I was like, what? It's not even something that I think about. For me, it's all about how can I keep moving forward and be productive and fill my day with full of things that are really highly impactful. But yeah, so there's still some work to be done around guilt and stillness for me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's hard. Society tells us this, and it's difficult. You can see all of the posts that you want on Instagram and Facebook and whatever newspaper article you're reading at the time that tells you it's okay to have fun. Self-care, 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 self-care. Self-care is bullshit too. Self-care means that you're doing it by yourself. And we can't. We have to stop and ask for help. Self-care, the ultimate self-care. And I encourage everybody to read Emily and Amelia Nagoski's book, Burnout. It talks about all of this. Self-care is not the answer. Care is the answer.
And connection then. So by actually having someone show compassion, to see you, to hear you, to value you, to actually hold space. Yeah. Isn't that fascinating? Like even through my cancer journey, that was something that blew me away with how people showed up, how they cared, how they were there and present for me.
Right.
I think you're right. Self-care feels quite self-indulgent, doesn't it? And something that's quite isolating and that you do alone.
Well, self-care, it's a social justice issue when we really look at it, because what it means is if you have the financial means to do these cool things for yourself, then you are a better human being because you can self-care.
You can afford that retreat and go away and be massaged for hours on end and have facials and do whatnot.
Yep.
You don't actually need to go away to down-regulate, for sure.
Absolutely. Care is not something that we should have to pay for. It's something that should be part of the society that we live in. And your stress response that you had about leaving your job is just a great even though it was just for a couple days, right? It's just a great thing to say. You felt very alone in that. If I don't continue this, if I take a couple of days off, I'm going to lose something. There's going to be a client that I don't get to talk to or something, because you feel very alone. Being an entrepreneur can be exceptionally isolating.
Yeah.
And COVID did not help.
Yeah.
So I would bet that that's part of that whole response there.
Yeah, I'm gonna sit with that. I'll probably do some journaling around it. Thank you for the reflection. I appreciate it.
Awesome.
So Angela, it sounds to me like cancer was quite an amazing gift for you around body awareness, body wisdom, tuning in, really taking that time to honor what was being stirred up within for you.
It took me back to my dream that I had when I was 15 years old.
Yeah.
When I was 15 years old, I said, I'm going to be a sex therapist because
Yeah.
I wanted to understand and I wanted to help other people understand.
Yeah.
And I didn't do it because that's not what a young lady should be doing. It's
Should.
not appropriate.
Yeah.
Right? Exactly. So it definitely helped me 30 years later.
Yeah. Amazing.
Do the thing.
And I love the fact that they do say, like, pay attention to what you most wanted to do when you're in your teens or even younger than that. But, you know, earlier in your life before you had any preconceived notions of what you should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that you've actually gone full circle and gone back to that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it really is. And I'm lucky to have a supportive family. My husband and my son are just, I can't without them. They're there and they're supportive, and that's everything.
That's amazing. So Angela, what advice would you give to someone who's early in their, you know, just diagnosed or early in their treatment journey? What advice would you give for someone that if you could impart your wisdom into them now?
Every time somebody says the word should, it's okay to stop and ask yourself, really? Should I do that?
Yeah.
And the only should that matters is that you should ask for help.
Mm.
We have to ask for help. Again, listen to the audiobook, listen to their podcast. The Nagoski sisters, they know. And it really is, we cannot do this alone. We have to have help. We have to. If you when you go to the doctor, ask somebody to come with you so that they can take notes, so that they can hold the questions.
Yeah.
Please don't do it alone.
Yeah.
Please don't do it alone.
It takes a village to get someone through a cancer journey, for sure. And even through life, you know?
Yeah. And if you're listening to this and you're saying, I have nobody, reach out to me. Reach out to me, because that's not true. You do have somebody.
There's always someone. I mean, for me, I know I was blown away by who actually showed up for me in my treatment journey. And it wasn't people that I expected. You know, there was people from in my work spheres. There was people, friends that were just a little bit further out of my sphere that I thought, oh no, they're more acquaintances. They're not good, close friends, but now they are. And some of the people that I thought would show up for me didn't. So it was a bit of a surprise. So, yeah. But it does take a village. It does take a community of people around us to get us through life, full stop.
Right. And you don't have to be an extrovert. You don't have to be somebody who loves to have people around you. But we do. Think about babies. When babies are born, if they do not have skin to skin contact and are able to establish a connection with another human being, they die.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's actually a code for it. It's called failure to thrive.
Yes.
And when we go through any challenge in our life, including living, we will fail to thrive without support.
And touch.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for our chat today, Angela. You are just a wealth of wisdom and knowledge and experience. And I'm just so grateful. I feel better for this conversation. I know it's such a beautiful opportunity for me to reflect as well on my journey and some of the insights that I've gained along the way as well. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate you and your honest sharing today. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and I am grateful for this space to share my story.
Thanks so much for joining us today on Rethinking Cancer. I hope this episode has lifted your spirits. Come and join us again for more inspirational cancer thriver stories, expert interviews, and strategies to live your best life. Who knows, maybe it could be your story next. I'm Cindy Scott. Until we meet again.